1920s Cornely LG, so chain stitch embroidery machine. So 100 years old. She does everything is hand guided. Here we go, let's get these threads through. So the yarn comes up from underneath because the needles themselves are teeny tiny little hooks, kind of like a really miniature crochet hook or a tambour hook. So in under here there's a looper, so when I stitch, needle goes down, looper goes round, pulls up, and that's how it creates that stitch. So then it creates the loops on a chain, keeps on going. So this machine itself has a whole lot of attachments, so you can fit it on and you can do braiding and coiling, which these little examples here were from yesterday when I had us threaded up for those particular things. So this is with braid. This is a very bad example of coiling because I didn't have the proper filler stitch. So metallic threads are always a bit crunchy when you can't let them go the way they want to go. But this machine itself, it's got what's called a universal feed. So no feed dogs or anything on the bottom. I've got a little handle here underneath which I control which direction the machine stitches with. So that moves both the fabric and it also changes the direction that the needle is facing so that it's also always facing the right direction. So like this. Okay.
How long did it take you to learn how to use the machine?
So this particular one's the Cornely LG, and I've got another Cornely as well that I got at the same time, which I've had for like 19 years. So the first couple of years were definitely a learning curve because they're very different to any other sewing machine. So when I left school, I did a fine arts degree with a textiles major, and that was where I discovered free motion, hand guided embroidery was definitely my jam. I have several what's called the Singer Irish machines, which are the ones that you work in a hoop. Your left foot controls the motor because your right knee controls the width of the zigzag. And so I've been working on one of those for a very long time. And then so I had that one for probably about 22, 23 years now. And about 19 years ago, two Cornelys came up on eBay back when eBay was first really just starting out. And the guy who was selling them, it was hilarious because when he advertised them, he put a sign saying, "If you don't know what these are, they're not for you." And then he put on a thing saying, "If you do know what these are and you're interested in buying them, do not bid, you have to talk to me first." And he put his phone number on. And so I rang him up and had a chat with him, and he decided that I was the person he wanted to sell them to because he didn't want them to go to a collector, he didn't want them to go into a museum, he didn't want them gathering dust, because he wanted them to be used and loved. And his beautiful story about them was that they were his mum's. She brought them over to Australia from Italy in the 1950s when they emigrated, and she had worked for couture houses all the way through up until only a few months before she died. So when she died, she was in her mid-80s, and it was about 18 months, give or take a bit, roughly that long, since she died, that he put them up for sale, and he just really wanted them to be used to kind of honour her memory and all that sort of stuff. So he lived all the way up north, and we live in Wagga, so we drove to Sydney, he drove down to Sydney so that we could meet and I could buy them, and he showed me how to use them on the side of the road, hilariously. And then we took them home, and I will say that there's a very different to any other even embroidery machine. So there was a bit of a learning curve of having to kind of retrain my brain with these. But I love them. They're beautiful, and they create a really interesting sort of textured stitch with the chain stitch. It's something different than you usually see, which is really lovely. So every single thing that I do is all hand guided, be it on this machine or on my Singer Irish, that I still do a lot of work with that. So everything I've got here today, it's all hand designed, hand guided, nothing's computerized or anything like that, and that's how I like it.
That's great.
So, yeah.
So at least we're still getting humans doing things and not machines.
Absolutely. I really like things that have that obvious being made by someone's hand, where each one is individual and unique, even when I'm doing a run, they all still have their own little individual quirks, little individual sort of bits where they're a bit different to each other. I'm doing a little run of cars at the moment because I constantly get asked if I do cars, and I've never had cars, so this time I thought, oh well, I've got some. I didn't get them done before I got here, but I had them drawn up and ready to go, so I figured I'd use those as my little demonstrator.
But it's great doing that, isn't it? Because then people can see what it's like.
In the car park, the number plate is 1, white for yellow, T for Tom, 2, B for Barry, T
Not
for
our
Tom.
one.
White ute in the car park, can you please go to your car? That's a white ute in the car park. Number plate number 1, Y for yellow, T for Tom.
Ada,
2,
knock that
B for
ring
Barry,
over.
T for Tom. Please return to your car.